of the NFL season is upon us as the Dallas Cowboys walk their way into MetLife Stadium. Ezekiel Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson and company looking to get back on the right track as the 1-2 Dallas Cowboys invade MetLife, trying to take down the 1-2 New York Giants in their first NFC East bout of the 2024 season. Welcome in to Cowboys Pregame Live, presented by WinStar World Casino and Resort. We are live from the Globe Life Studios at the Star in Frisco, leading you into kickoff on Prime Video tonight between the Cowboys and the Giants. We've got Barry Church, Nate Newton, Isaiah Stanback. I'm Kyle Yeoman, soon to be joined by Nicole Hutchison and then Nick Eatman out at MetLife Stadium on the sidelines. We've got a lot to talk about because there's some frustration, there's some angst, and there's a lot on the line tonight in New York. Barry, I mean, this is a game where I think from the outside looking in, it looks like a must-win for the mentality of this team. But from former players themselves and from a player's perspective, a game this early, is this about as close as you're going to get to a must-win?
Yes, I would agree with you on that, Kyle. Maybe not mathematically when you talk about, your record could be 1-3 and you still have a chance to make to the playoffs. But when you talk about that locker room, the confidence in that locker room has to be going forward. It has to get through New York in this situation. This is a team that you've won 12 straight victories against. All right, they're your little brother out there. You cannot let this team get into a fast start and make this a football game. This is a huge game for the Dallas Cowboys, and they have to get a victory this afternoon.
You know, as an offensive lineman and being one of the weak spots in this young season, I would be thinking about doing my assignment, making sure I have great technique, and getting off that rock. I would not want to disappoint my offensive unit and help my defense all I could.
Just come out and play as a unit. That's all these guys have to do today. You know, there's one way to galvanize what you have going on internally in the locker room, and that is to come out and be as one. Come out with one mindset. Everybody has the same exact mission, and that is to go out there and bust guys in the mouth on the defensive side of the ball, execute on special teams, and score points offensively. That's what you have to do. And if everybody is doing their third of the game, then at the end of the day, you have a W, and this locker room is now going to be coming together instead of breaking apart.
Were there ever any moments within your careers, and Nate, I'll look to you as the three-time Super Bowl champ, where you overcame some of that adversity early in the season in order to right the ship whenever it was needed most?
I've been through a 1-15 or 3-13. I've been there. And fortunate for us, we had the coaching staff that kept us under control. We had great players like Michael Irvin, who continued to speak through successes that he had early in his career and brought it over into with the Cowboys. We just started to build. So what you have to do is still believe in yourself and believe in one another, and you can get through this.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right, Nate. And when I go back to my experience, I've been through a 1-7 start where our coach got fired halfway through the season. And it came down to the leaders in that locker room, the DeMarcus Wares of the world, the Jason Hatchers of the world, to make sure we galvanize the troops and finish the season strong. Fortunately, we were able to finish that season 5-3, and we were able to go on from there. But to me, it's all about the leaders in that locker room, galvanizing the troops and going forward.
You got to have some dogs that hop out in the game and take care of business. And everybody just has to follow, right? You have leaders and you have followers. Just because you're playing at the highest level of sport does not mean that you're an automatic leader. So for those individuals that these guys are talking about, those leaders on the team, the Dak Prescotts, okay, the DeMarcus Lawrences, okay, those guys, the Eric Kendricks of the world, those guys have to lead by example. They don't have to do a bunch of yapping. They don't have to do a bunch of talking, but go out there, do your job, and then demand that everybody else does their job. And if they're not doing their job, then the next man up has to come up and take care of business.
Now, a lot of the frustration stems from the blowout loss to New Orleans in Week 2. Then you turn around, you get blown out in the first half against the Ravens, and you start to find your way back, but really it was garbage time at that point. It was a late comeback that had a shot, but a slight chance for the Cowboys against the Ravens. Going into Week 4, maybe it's a good thing that this is a short week, Isaiah. Talk to the challenges of turning around and playing a game on just 3.5 days of rest. But in a week like this, maybe this is what the doctor ordered.
It has to be what the doctor ordered. But you know what? I'm going to go back and say that it goes back even further. It goes back to the last playoff game against the Green Bay Packers, right? There's a little bit of bad taste in your mouth even from that game. So you go out there, you smack up Cleveland, take care of business, but then the next 2 games you get busted in your mouth, right? Obviously, just things don't go your way. The Saints take care of you. The Baltimore Ravens take care of you. And being that it's on a short week, you don't have time to be in your feelings, as we like to say. And for those that don't understand what that means being emotional throughout the week. Get onto the next task at hand. That game was Sunday evening, okay? Yeah, you got hit 2 weeks in a row. But now I have a new opponent. I have new things that I have to execute on. I have new assignments and new guys I have to be concerned about. If I'm still worried about last week, then it will roll over into this week's game, but you can't afford for that because you are a professional athlete.
Yeah, Isaiah, you're 1,000% correct when you talk about the mentality in which this team has to go towards this Thursday game. When you look at it playing Sunday, it is tough because when you get to that Thursday afternoon, your body's just now feeling right from that Sunday. But this is the game where you need your leaders to show these young guys how to prepare getting ready for a short week. You're going to have to get into that film study. You're going to have to get into that laptop and understand how to break things down. Because when you look at it, you're not going to have that physical practice out there where you're full speed, full ready to go. See what Daniel Jones loves to do on third down. What blitz packages are they going to have in third down? You're not going to be able to run through that for the practice. So you have to get in your laptop and you have to be a film junkie out there to understand what the Giants love to do heading into this Thursday matchup.
And whenever you talk about some of that emotion, some of that frustration building, I mean, we saw some sideline explosions last week with CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons maybe. They both have addressed it since then. CeeDee even apologized for it. Nate, is that something that we should worry about whenever it comes to the emotion of these players showing out in body language and the way that they interact with one another?
No, just what you talked about earlier, and these two guys are with you. The emotions is high. Everybody's frustrated. You've lost the game. But the week is too short, and plus you have to travel. You have to travel. You're going to try to take what positive you had and bring it over into this game, even though there was a 4-3, now it's a 3-4. So the looks are going to be a little bit different. But these guys have to focus on what's happening now. CeeDee Lamb apologized, take him for face value. The young number 11, Parsons, he's trying to change who he is and be a better leader. These are learning things, but winning will cure this. They need a victory.
Yeah, you're right when you talk about, learning from these experiences. And I'm not worried about it just yet. All three of us, we've played the game. And Cal, you've covered the game long enough to understand that these frustrations happen on the sideline. But what you can't let it do is let those frustrations boil out onto the field and affect your game out there on the football field. You can't let it snowball effect like that. Now, if these, frustrations and these arguments continuously happen, then you have a problem. So to me, they got to nip it in the bud and get ready for New York.
And there's going to be extra cameras on that coverage tonight. You better believe it. Prime time, Amazon Prime. You've got, of course, Thursday Night Football. The entire country is watching this game tonight. They will be fixated on what's happening on the sideline and reading that body language. Now, the last time the Cowboys traveled to MetLife Stadium and went to the Meadowlands, it was a pretty good day for Dallas. It was the season opener last year, 40-0, the biggest shutout, blowout win in Cowboys franchise history. Today's a different day, Isaiah, but you look at some of the history that this Cowboys team has had against the Giants recently. How much does that play a factor going into a week like this?
None at all. I know stats matter, history matters, but the reality is you're in an entirely different season. You have an entirely different opponent than you've had these last 2 weeks, and you need a victory, right? You are 1-2. 1-2. And you're 0-1 in the NFC. So what really matters is that you go out here and get a victory, not only for your overall record, but also from the standpoint of we cannot afford to go 0-2 in the NFC if we want to even think about talking about playoffs.
Yeah, you're right when you talk about, what the history matters when it comes to this game. But the Cowboys, they are 12-0 in the past 12 starts against these New York Giants. When you look at the combined record or the combined stats with these two teams, the last two opportunities they had to go out there and play, the Cowboys had 89 points to the New York Giants 17. All right, so you got to understand that you got to start fast out here this afternoon. You can't play down to the level of competition and think that Daniel Jones and these New York Giants can go out there and play the same game as you. You're more talented on both sides of the football. You got to go out there and act like it.
Malik Neighbors, Devin Singletary, a new built Jones, they don't care. They're worried about now. We've beat the same common opponent, Cleveland. That's all both teams have beaten. Now one of us will be the remedy for the other team, and it will be decided on the field, not what happened in the past.
And the Cowboys are trying to slow down the connection between the Giants' weapons while trying to figure out some sort of connection with their own. I mean, look at Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb. I mean, that is not normal numbers whenever it comes to those two guys and the way that they've connected in the past. So, Isaiah, I'll start with you on this. Whenever you see a tandem like this, as talented as this, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb having the struggles that they do, how much does that play a factor for your entire offense?
It's a huge thing, but the thing is, you're not throwing the ball, and you're not having these two working together because you have this great benefit. Dak Prescott has thrown 73% of his passes this year from behind. So you're throwing the ball because you have to throw the ball. You're not throwing the ball because it's something that you want to or like to do. So Dallas has to do a better job of getting out early, having good early down and distance success, so that these guys can now throw the ball off of play action instead of throwing the ball 40-plus times a game just because you have to.
Yeah, I believe this Dak and this CeeDee connection, it'll get going. I mean, both of these players are too good to continue with this average play. But to me, it just can't be CeeDee Lamb or bust when it comes to this offense. I think you still need to see more from Ferguson. I think you still need to see more from Tolbert. You need to still see some more from Cooks, especially with the lack of running game that we've seen these past 3 weeks from the Dallas Cowboys.
These teams have made a concerted effort to take CeeDee Lamb out of the game. Jake Ferguson has to show up. We have to throw the ball out of the backfield. CeeDee has to be always ready. It cannot be when he thinks it's right. It's got to be when Dak sees it right.
Yeah.
When you go to forcing, the turnovers start. CeeDee, be patient. That is what a winner does.
Out of the entire NFL since the beginning of the year, CeeDee Lamb's targets have been from the closest window throws more than anybody else in the entire league. Teams are trying to take away CeeDee Lamb, and he knows it. But he knows that can't lead to more frustration. Here's what he said earlier in the week, talking about some of that frustration and how he's going to handle it going into week 4.
Man, just being a professional about this whole situation, understanding it's a long game. But as for me and my performance, I expect a lot out of myself, more than anyone could put on me. And quite honestly, I felt myself. And obviously I felt the team just as far as producing and being that game-breaker player for the team, and obviously the guy that they can lean on. And, I kind of let the game get to my head a little bit. But in the same sense, I knew what I can do. I knew what I bring to the table, and I know what I can do on that field. So with that being said, going forward, there shall be a difference.
Is that where you were frustrated mostly with, just yourself, or was it just
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Myself, and then, like, my ability to contribute to the offense, knowing what I can do. So that played a huge part. And once again, can't blame nobody. You got to start with the man in the mirror, and I'm a huge believer in that. And watching that game kind of pissed me off, but, hey, I did that. You know what I'm saying? I can't get mad at nobody else. So with that being said, I've learned.
How much are you and Dak together look at this thing and say, we got to get this going?
No, we understand the urgency, and that's between us. We talk about it every day, every night, and our relationship has, if anything, gotten stronger. Don't let what's out there fool you. We're brothers to the end. We know that we all we got, and I tip my hat off to him. I got the utmost respect for him, and I look at him as a brother. So that, with that being said, everything is going to come out, the energy, the passion, the love, the fight. We'll make up in the end. No craziness now. Don't.
That's what was on the sideline Sunday? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, no, for sure.
And, of course, you can sense some of that frustration building for CeeDee Lamb and company. They'll look to try and rectify that against this struggling Giants secondary here this week. Let's go out to MetLife Stadium for the first time and check in with our very own Nick Eatman. Nick, I mean, this is a big game for the Cowboys to try and find some rhythm, find a little bit of confidence along the way. And is that Post Malone behind you right now, Nick? What's going on over there?
It is. Yeah, well, the stars come out here on Thursday night, Post Malone. I thought he was going to, photobomb me. And, Chris Beam was about to tackle him, I think. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. But, no, he's not letting anybody through here. But if Post wants to come talk to us, I think we would have made an exception, right?
Yeah, we got to move the headset if that's the case. But it's a next man up mentality. If Post Malone comes over, it might be next man up whenever it comes to this secondary. Kalen Carson, Marquise Bell, both confirmed out. What does that do to the depth of that position group?
Well, anytime you're talking about your starter, at corner, and he's the starter right now because Ron Bland is out, so he's really the second guy. So I don't even want to attempt the name. I've tried it a couple times. He's coming up from the practice squad. Aruwarie, maybe, something like that. But, he's a veteran. He's played, and that'll be a guy that helps him. Mukwamu there as well. Trayvon Diggs on the other side, though, he's still going to get tested as well. But I would imagine, with Malik Neighbors, he's going to test. He's a rookie himself, but he's going to test the other guys too.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Israel Mukwamu, you mentioned that name. Do you feel like he'll have the majority of those snaps at the secondary level and as a corner in replacement of Kalen Carson and what he's brought to the table in these first 3 weeks?
Well, I think Mukwamu, Booth, Andrew Booth, it's gonna be a combination. I try to ask that question, who's starting, and they're like, well, we'll see when the kickoff starts. So, I mean, I think it's going to be Mukwamu, but we'll see Booth out there. Jordan Lewis, some on the outside, even though he's more of a slot guy. Booth is also a slot guy too. So, you know, they're going to have to figure it out. You know, just it might be who's hot in one of those situations, but they're definitely going to get tested, and so we'll be able to find out right away who's ready to step up to the challenge. But you know, Mukwamu is a guy that gives you some length. I think he might help with Marquise Bell being out, just because we've seen him in nickel and dime situations. They put him close to the line of scrimmage. He's got these long arms. You know, we saw him play well in the playoff game against Tom Brady. So, you know, he can rise to the occasion as well.
How much pressure is on this defense to slow down the run tonight whenever it comes to this Giants rushing attack? They haven't had a ton of success running the football so far. Is this really the first chance we'll see this front seven have some success in run defense?
I think, Kyle, it's the first chance we're really going to see, like, all right, what is this rush defense? Because I think if the Giants go out and they turn Devin Singletary into Barry Sanders, then I think, okay, we got problems here. We know there's problems because they're last in the league after 3 games. But almost to the level of this is going to be really hard to fix with the people that you have here. It's not just a scheme thing. If you're getting run over by the Giants, that's not what they do. But they're going to try it. They're going to try to test it. So we'll see if it's one of those things. Is it big bad Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, or is it everybody? And I think that's what we'll find out tonight.
Last one from me, but the weather is also a conversation. It always seems to be whenever you guys make the trip out to MetLife. What's it looking like right now? And if it is significant, what type of impact will it have on the game?
I don't think it's going to be that bad. It rained during the day. It feels kind of wet, like dreary a little bit, but it's going to be fine. I believe it. And there may be some rain in the forecast, but a little slippery, but for the most part, not like last year where it rained all day. Of course, it didn't hurt the Cowboys. They won 40-0. But I think that, you know, it's a little slick, but it should be fine.
Nick Eatman joining us from the sidelines at MetLife Stadium. Thanks so much, Nick. We'll talk to you again as we catch up with Stephen Jones later in the show. There he goes, Nick Eatman. Now I'm rejoined by Barry Church. Now, Barry, there's a lot going on with this secondary, so I want to get your input as a former safety. Of course. No Kalen Carson, no Marquise Bell. Those are 2 guys that have played significant snaps over these last 2 seasons for the Cowboys. Carson, of course, is a rookie, started the first 3 games at cornerback. What does this do with this inactive list and that secondary being stretched all the way to the limits?
Well, when you look at a guy like Marquise Bell, I mean, that's one of your better tacklers in the secondary right there. So they're going to miss him special teams-wise. But the big one to me has got to be Kalen Carson out there because it forces your cornerback room to be extremely thin. And like Nick said, you're going to have to play guys like Mukwamu or you're going to have to play Booth out there. And we were both here in the preseason, and we watched Booth out there, and he had some flashes of ability on the outside, but I don't believe he's ready to step up to be that outside corner out there. So when you talk about guys like Booth and Mukwamu, I believe the best bet would go with Mukwamu out there. He's a bigger corner. He has that length, and he can use his hands to go out there and disrupt these wide receivers and get that connection between Daniel Jones and these wide receivers a little bit off. And they're going to need that length because they got a special one over there with this New York wide receiver core.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors has been phenomenal so far, and the way that they've been able to find him in space is big. But Israel Mukwamu going up against him, would he have an advantage just based off of the length?
I would believe so because you know with Zimmer's system, he likes to play that zone coverage. So you can go up there into that cover 2 system and you can use your length out there to get hands on Neighbors just so you can disrupt that route because we all understand if that corner in that cover 2 system has to get his hands on these wide receivers. We saw what happened in that Saints game. When you let a wide receiver get off the line of scrimmage scot-free, it puts stress on those safeties. So you have to have that bigger corner, that length out there to be able to get that wide receiver off his route.
So let's talk about Malik Neighbors a little bit. He's been fantastic. 23 receptions, 271 yards, 3 touchdowns. He's led the Giants in receiving in each of his career first 3 games. He's the 4th player since 2000 to do that, and he's on pace to break records that were set by Puka Nacua and what he did last season. So overall, there's ways that this Malik Neighbors weaponry has been used by the Giants. How do the Cowboys slow it down?
Well, like I said earlier, you got to get hands on this guy. I mean, this guy is second in the National Football League with 23 receptions out there. That means that the New York Giants love to get him the football. But what makes him scary, in my opinion, is this guy leads the league with 6 catches of over 20 yards, which means explosive plays. And what we've seen from the last 2 games with this Cowboys defense, the explosive plays has killed them. So I understand in Zim's system that you don't like to travel your corners out there. They like to play right and left. But in this situation, you may want to rethink that because Neighbors, he's a special one at wide receiver.
And does he remind you of any of the guys you played up against, whether they was early in their career or even later on down the line?
He kind of reminds me of one of those LSU guys that I played against early in his career, in Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, that guy had a great catch radius out there. He was super athletic, and he could run pretty much every route there is in the route tree. Neighbors reminds me a lot of his LSU brethren.
It's going to be a fun one. And, of course, Odell Beckham had some success against the Cowboys.
Just a little bit.
Hopefully that's not the case this week, as they will be wearing, by the way, the Arctic helmets, the Arctic Cowboy look tonight on the road at MetLife Stadium. We've got more coming up here through Cowboys Pregame Live, including Daniel Jones. He's been on a heater the last 2 games. Yes. Can he continue his momentum going up against the Cowboys defense? There's some momentum being searched for Tyler Guyton as well. How does he rebound after a couple of tough weeks? And speaking of tough weeks, Mike Zimmer and his defense is looking to find an answer in the details. And with more on that, we go to Nicole Hutchison.
Well, Kyle, I spoke with Jordan Lewis, Eric Kendricks, and Osa Odigizua earlier this week about that lingering issue of not being able to stop the run, and they made it clear to me that it's not the lack of talent. It's all up here, the mentality, and it's about the little things, and they're sure that it'll be all cleaned up against the Giants tonight. There was an opportunity in Week 3 for the Cowboys to silence all the chatter, yet it was another day in the office their biggest weakness was exposed. Like the Saints, the Ravens had a goal, run the football, and they had success rushing for 275 yards in their win in Dallas.
We're preaching something all week. Everyone's in the locker room saying we're going to do what we got to do, and everyone's going to be accountable. And when you come out, it's just like, how are we getting gas? We're not being accountable, not set. It's just like, the game don't come down to that third down.
And it did. One final stop needed for the defense to turn things around, but a Lamar Jackson run up the middle ended that chance. So how do the Cowboys find the answer to the one thing that's been their Achilles heel in their 3 straight losses at home since 2023?
Detail every play. Just knowing the game within the game, which is every play. You got to be detailing that, and just understand your assignment every play. And had to do that through 60 minutes of football.
The details. Jordan Lewis in that one interview using the word 14 times because it's been the small things that have led to opposing teams' success. The Cowboys have recorded 32 missed tackles, resulting in the 3rd most yards lost, 2 tackles. They've also made contact on opposing rushers behind the line of scrimmage on 31% of carries this season. So the key to fixing it, do your job and do it well.
I think sometimes, including myself, like I can be late to a later step. I'm really just trying to focus on being able to do my job better so that I can play within our defense and so that other people can have success as well.
232 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 15 rushes of over 10-plus yards, and 5.5 rushing yards per carry. These are the numbers the Cowboys have allowed over the last 2 weeks.
At the end of the day, this is about us stopping people. That's just what it is. We got to be out. We got to be credible, accountable, every single play. And that's 60 minutes of football. It don't matter who we play. We got to go out there and be detailed in the plays. It don't matter who we play in this NFL. If we're not doing that, anybody can beat us.
But as they turn to the Giants, the frustrations are just the motivation.
We got to get it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a winning organization. I want to uphold that standard. But at the same time, everyone has to uphold the standard. And, I think I'm confident, in my faith. I just think we're being tested right now, man.
And a test that the rest of this team is confident they can pass.
Thank you very much, Nicole. It is a talking point, and it has been for Cowboys fans over the last couple of weeks. Maybe even the last couple of years, dating back all the way to the 2020 season. Mike McCarthy takes over, hires Mike Nolan. We know what happened there, just lasted 1 year. The rush defense has really never been right. underneath Mike McCarthy, and we'll see what it happens as the year goes on. But this front seven is going to be tested again today, Barry. How do they get back on track?
Well, to me, we've talked about this a lot. I think it comes down to the one-on-one matchups and being a more physical defense. I mean, what you've seen from these past 2 weeks, the Saints game and the Baltimore Ravens game, were guys that are just attached to their blockers out there. No one was winning the one-on-one battles, and these guys were getting to the second level extremely fast. And when you're going against these explosive runners like that, and they get to that second level, they get that momentum going, they become hard to bring down. So to me, what they've got to do as a unit, one, is play together, and two, you've got to win the one-on-one battles. Who's going to step up and be that guy, whether it's on the defensive line, the second level, or in the secondary, to spark things off, make a big hit, make a play that they weren't supposed to go out there and do. And that, to me, is how you change things around. Win your one-on-one battles and play as a unit. It can't just be one guy out there doing it. You got to play as a unit together.
The foundation of this defense is about being gap discipline. And for those that don't understand what gap discipline means, the defensive linemen, the four-down defensive linemen for the Dallas Cowboys, are asked and tasked with being in a particular hole. If they are in that hole, they're now forcing one, maybe even two guys at times to go ahead and block them, which frees up the second-level guys, the linebackers, to free flow. They are supposed to be the superstars of this defense, the linebackers are. But they cannot be superstars if they have a 100-pound disadvantage coming up to block them. So these guys need to stop playing right down the middle of guys, start playing on half a man so that you can win your assignments. And even if you don't win your assignments, at least consume the guys that are responsible for going and blocking your superstars.
So you talk about that gap discipline. You talk about the way that this team has not gotten to that point. Is that teaching? Is it scheme? Is it assignment? Is it lack of discipline? I mean, what does lead to the lack of success whenever it comes to those things?
I honestly believe that guys are right now torn between what it is that they've been accustomed to doing as individual players in winning their assignments and doing what's being asked of them in this new Mike Zimmer scheme. In this Mike Zimmer scheme, you guys remember when Mike Zimmer came over, everybody was talking about discipline and he's going to instill all this, this tough football. With his scheme, his front four guys are legitimately, they're there to take up blocks. They're not supposed to be the ones that make all the plays. If they make plays, awesome, but that's not the expectation. That was my concern with Micah Parsons in this scheme because he's no longer going to be considered a quote-unquote featured player. Those guys are being asked to do one particular job, but I think they're still getting torn from saying, I want to win my assignment, but if I do what I want to do in terms of trying to win this assignment, I'm no longer doing what my coach is asking me to do.
Yeah, and you've also got to understand when you're talking about this defense that these guys have to know where your help is. I mean, 9 times out of 10, we've seen these two games where the edges are being reached. There's no one out there that's going to help you on that edge. All your help and all your troops are coming from the inside. So you've got to do your job in that regard. If you're asked to hold out there and hold contain, make sure you hold contain. Force everything back to where your help is coming from. You talked about those fast linebackers and running sideline to sideline. The only time we saw that was in that Cleveland game when they were downhill and they were running sideline to sideline. These guys have got to know their job, and they've got to do it. There can be no hero ball, as Micah Parsons said last week.
So speaking about Micah Parsons, though, BC, and talking about holding contain, well, obviously Micah Parsons is at the end of the line of scrimmage.
This is true.
And if you go back to last week's film, he was responsible for holding the edge a lot of times. And he was sitting up there watching Derrick Henry run on the inside of him and go up to the next level, all the way to the third level and start stiff-arming people. What can Micah Parsons do when he's being asked to hold the edge? Can he still be a dominant player in this game?
You can't be a dominant player and it's what he wants to be, being just holding the edge out there. That's just not how it's going to work. And I understand that he's one of the top players in the National Football League, and he wants to do more and more to help this defense out. But you're right. When you sit there and you're holding the edge in that regard, you can't sit there and be the guy that folds back inside and makes plays. You can't be that guy because you're on the edge, and offenses are either going to just run at you or run away from you, and then that'll get you frustrated. And we saw what happens when these guys get frustrated on the sideline.
So, okay, with that being said, he was the one that pointed out playing superhero ball.
That's
true.
He
was the one that was saying there were guys being superheroes at this point and playing downhill and not doing their job and not doing what the team needs most. Is that hypocritical for him to say if that's the case?
I don't think it's hypocritical, but again, it goes back to the point that I was just making. You're torn between, I can beat this guy if I do it my way, but I'm going to try to do what coach is asking me to do. And when I do what coaches ask me to do, everybody's not doing their job, so nobody's being successful. Yeah. So if nobody's being successful within this scheme, then the heck with it. Let me do what I do best and go out there and win my matchup. And I think they're really caught in between this, and seemingly everybody's not on the same page. To Micah Parsons' point, he's doing what he's asked to do. I'm going to hold this edge because everybody else is supposed to do their job, and guess what? It's not successful. So now all of a sudden, if I do my own thing, I'm being a selfish player. So I'm caught in this frustration, right? This dichotomy between I can beat this dude all day long, but not doing it the way that Coach Zimmer wants me to.
And that becomes a kind of a slippery slope, though. Because if you go out there and you want to do your own thing and you understand that, hey, I can do this, I can beat this guy, but what happens when you do your own thing and they end up coming right where you were supposed to be at? So it's kind of a slippery slope right there, and that's why I say you got to kind of work as a unit out there.
You do have to work as a unit. And it's no matter what your opponent looks like as well. You did it in week 1, looked great against Cleveland, right? You did what you needed to do as a unit. Everybody was praising this defense, praising Mike Zimmer. It didn't work out in that way in week 2, and it did not work out again in week 3. So you got to find a way to right the ship. Maybe this week is that week. We do have fan question this week. It's another one from Dylan in Southport, Florida. He does a phenomenal job covering all this Dallas Cowboys media from Northport, Florida. Let's hear from Dylan and his question of the week.
Hey guys, Dylan from Northport, Florida here. My question is this. The Cowboys offense doesn't jump out and grab an early lead. Do the Giants have the personnel and the system in place to dominate Dallas on the ground like we've seen from the Cowboys' last 2 opponents?
So that's a great question. The firepower, we've talked about it already. Derrick Henry, we have Alvin Kamara in week 2. Even Jerome Ford we thought was a viable possibility in week 1. That didn't necessarily come to fruition for Cleveland. What does the firepower look like from this Giants rushing attack, and how does it compare to what they've seen so far?
Look, I think Singletary, I think he is a solid running back out there. I think he is. I think he forced, 13 missed tackles out there throughout the season. So he's a solid contributor to this run game. The offensive line has been working as a unit, so they can go out there and they can push guys around. So this defensive line has to be playing on their toes. But when you talk about what Singletary brings as opposed to what Derrick Henry, Kamara, Lamar Jackson can bring, I just don't see the comparison right there. And I think this is a matchup where the Dallas Cowboys can get back on track when you talk about the rush defense.
When you don't have the personnel, you have confidence and continuity. Right, so the New York Giants do not have the personnel to dominate the Dallas Cowboys on the ground. But what they are riding on right now is confidence, and they are playing as a unit, right? So that continuity factor. And when you have both of those things working hand in hand, you can take on any opponent, right? As long as if we're wrong together, we're wrong together. If we're right together, we're right together. But we're going to do it as a unit. And I think that's what we're kind of talking about right now, sitting up here in regards to the Dallas Cowboys. Offensively and defensively, they seem just out of sync. If everybody can get on the same page, you can do some amazing things together. But right now, the Giants are the most intact unit going forward in this game.
Well, let's talk about the Giants offense led by Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones has been playing some pretty good football as of late. Maybe not against the Cowboys, just 1-7. And that one win came when Dak Prescott was injured late in the 2020 season up against Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback. But he's coming off of back-to-back games with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And for the $40 million man in New York, that's the first time that's ever happened in his career. So you could very easily say, and it's not a high bar to hit, but this is the best football that Daniel Jones has been playing throughout his career. How much of a factor is that going into a game like this?
I think it is a big factor. Daniel Jones has been playing pretty well these past couple games, but I think a lot of that has to do with this offensive line. I mean, they've kept him upright and feeling comfortable in that pocket. The last 2 games, Daniel Jones has only been sacked 3 times. So he feels comfortable back there, and he's able to hit his weapons out there, Malik Neighbors and guys of that sort. So to me, that's why I think it's extremely imperative for Micah Parsons, D. Law, and the crew out there to make things hard for Daniel Jones. Get him back to having those happy feet back there. Get him back to seeing ghosts out there. Matter of fact, get him back to the Daniel Jones that we love and know, the one that loves to turn the football over. All right, that's the guy we want to see on Thursday. But this offensive line, they have been playing well as a unit, and they will be a task for this defensive line for the Cowboys.
Wasn't it you, Isaiah, last year that called him Danny Nichols?
Danny Nichols.
Is that what it was?
This is not Danny Nichols that you're playing today, all right? And let me help you understand why. Things that contributed to the nickname Danny Nickel, okay, was because the New York Giants used to play from what? Behind, right? So when you play from behind, you don't have an offensive line that can block for you, protect for you. You can't have a balanced offense. Now you're asking Danny Nickel to go ahead and throw you into victory, right? Which forces him into making bad decisions, errant throws, and then becoming Danny Nickel. But who do you have today? All right, you have almost Danny Dimes, okay? He's almost Danny Dimes. And the reason why, because I believe this is the third year in his Daboll system, right? So he's confident within the system. His offensive line is taking care of business. They have a balanced attack offensively in terms of rushing the ball and passing the ball, which means they're always going to be in a good down and distance. They're not going to ask him to be a superhero. And then he has somebody by the name of Malik Neighbors. Yes, he has a superstar wide receiver out there that's going out there and making big plays. So he's sharing the wealth with other guys who are big personalities and who are playmakers, which are making plays when he doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. This dude is making it easy on him, and a lot of the stress is being relieved from him, which is allowing him to be Danny Dimes.
So he's somewhere in between nickel and dime. I mean, he's just Danny Pocket Change.
Pocket change. I love it.
We're figuring it out. We're going to find the nickname for him along the line, and we'll see what ends up happening. If that's the case, if putting pressure on Daniel Jones is indeed the key for this Cowboys team, Micah Parsons may not have to worry about setting the edge. He's talking about maybe a pass rush ability. Let's hear from Micah. He thinks it's a must-win game for this team. He said last week was a prove-it game. What does this one turn into, Micah?
I mean, I feel like every game is really must-win, right? You talk about in the last 2 years, we were one game off a #1 seed, things like that. So I think every game has equal importance. But I think just in particular, like, I would like to get the ball back rolling again, getting back in the win column, getting to what we know best, and, get the ball rolling.
How do you think some of your messaging is being received by some of your teammates?
Well, it's very hard to tell, right? Because everyone's nodding their head like, yeah, we all agree. But at the same time, like, it's not equal when it's out there on the field. Too prideful to, I feel like as a competitor, like, at some point you got to be prideful enough to say, hey, like, I'm not going to allow this to happen to me. Like, I just feel like some people are just allowing them to keep getting smacked in the face. Like, when are you going to stand up? Like,
Better to have it now than towards the end of the season, like the Eagles when they were struggling on that 5-game stretch?
100%. You got to figure it out. I'd rather get knocked in the head now, because when you fail, what do? You got to get back up. And I think that's going to create a great locker room environment, great team environment, right? We failed. Okay, we know what that feels like. We know, like, you can only get up. It's only up from here, right? So when I said we're low, where do you go from when you're at the bottom? You climb. But you got to be willing to climb.
Micah Parsons trying to do his best in terms of finding that rhythm, finding some pass rush ability. He's had a ton of success against the Giants throughout his career because this Giants offensive line has struggled. But as Isaiah alluded to earlier, the offensive line playing better. Micah may be asked to stop the run a little bit more. How does that change his dynamic going into a game like this, Barry?
I'm not sure it changes it a lot because like Isaiah just said going forward, he's going to be asked to be on that edge, making sure he keeps contained on the running back Singletary. Now, will that take away from him being the dominant pass rusher that we understand? Yes, it will, but it'll have this defense playing as a unit out there, and I think that's what they need going forward as far as stopping the run. Will that take away from him being that great pass rusher and all that other sorts? Yes, it will, but it may help this run defense overall.
I don't like it. I want them to go ahead and free this man. Give us free. Let Micah Parsons be who he is. He's trying his best, as Big Nate Dogg said earlier in the show today, to be a leader. He's trying to be what they're asking him to be. He's trying to be all he can be in this Army. But we need Micah Parsons to be the number 11 that we've all come to know and love and trust in, to be the game-changing playmaker for this team, because he is the energy bus.
He has to be a disruptor. He has to be. And, Jimmy Johnson would say, I'm speaking to 10 guys. Do your job. That 11th guy, we're going to put him in a position where he can disrupt so all of you all will look better. They have to do that at all costs.
You're saying build around Micah Parsons.
Yes, you have to.
As opposed to fitting Micah Parsons into a certain box.
Well, you're going to do that next year when you pay him, aren't you?
Yeah.
Everybody's going to get paid around Micah Parsons. So if that's what it's going to be going into next year, then make him the premier dude. I understand you have a system, but to your point, when you have a dude, right, and you play with a lot of dudes, Nate.
That's right.
When you have a dude, you make it work for that dude.
No doubt about it. And he's not the only pass rusher that's really good in this game today. Cowboys have a couple of their own. Giants have a couple that are eating as well. How about Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, former top 5 pick in his own right, and then they get Brian Burns, who's had a phenomenal couple of years. First in Carolina, now he works over to New York, and of course, he's trying to have some success in his first NFC East bout of the season as well. Back with Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Yeomans. Guys, whenever it comes to these players coming off the edge there from the Giants and the way that they do put pressure on Dak Prescott today, how much is that going to affect this Cowboys offense, Isaiah?
Tremendously, because Mr. Burns, all right, Mr. New Guy, all right, he goes out there and he is a terrorist on that defensive line. Not only you have to worry about him, but you also have to worry about the other side. And on the other side, you have a dude by the name of Kayvon Thibodeau, all right? But not only do you have those defensive ends, you got the big dog holding it down in the middle in Dexter Lawrence. And this particular defense likes to bring edge pressure. So not only do they have a solid guy in the middle to hold it down and consume 2 blockers, your tackles are being responsible for their one-on-one matchups with both of these defensive ends, and then they like to bring pressure outside of those guys and really try to funnel your quarterback in. So when you have a quarterback that gets funneled in and he has to step up in the pocket, he's stepping up into the big dog, Dexter Lawrence, and that's where Big Nate Dogg likes to live.
Yeah, to me, this is going to be a test. This is going to be a test for BB and Guyton, both of your young guys on the offensive line. Like you just mentioned, you got Dexter Lawrence in the center, and we saw what he loves to do, just go right over that center and get that middle pressure on the quarterback. And then you look on the outside with Guyton out there, look, we understand that this is a guy in Brian Burns who's extremely physical on the outside, but has all the rush moves as well. So when you look at that, I need this Cowboys offensive line, I need this play caller out there to make sure they have some help for my man out there. Just don't leave him on the island or you're going to get your quarterback destroyed.
They have no other choice. They got a bulldog in the middle. He walks bow-legged. Yes, sir. Man, this Dexter Lawrence, I don't know if it's the second or the third, but he moves mountains. I seen on the film where they tried to double team him and did not gain a ground. Cooper, hands inside, perfect hand placement, punch, short set him. But do not let him get any momentum. Because what y'all call that thing where when it start rolling, it don't
Juggernaut,
stop?
Juggernaut.
He is that and more, my friend.
We saw one of those last week in Derrick Henry, but now you've got one on the defensive line. Nate, you've faced defensive lines like this. What do the Cowboys' offensive line have to do today to try and take some of the pressure off of Dak Prescott? Because there's been plenty of it these last 3 weeks.
It's a 3-man front, basically. You have to short set a lot of times, not at your tackles, but in the middle. You have to make sure that Dexter Lawrence gains no ground so we can run Burns them and Thibodeau around the circle. What my left tackle has to do, he has to not let this guy beat him inside not once. Yeah. He got to run him. He got to run him.
And that's my concern too, Big Nate, because when you start talking about this edge pressure, these guys are bringing this edge pressure. Their tackle is going to be the one that has the responsibility of turning out to that edge. And if you're turning out to that edge, then those defensive ends are going to have the ability to spin back inside, just like we've been having trouble.
Well, you play the quarterback position. You know, what's worse in your opinion? When you're getting that edge pressure or you're getting that guy straight up the middle in your face when you're trying to step up in the pocket?
So the middle.
You hate
I need somewhere to step up.
And that's what that bulldog is when you talk about Dexter Lawrence coming up the middle. So to me, this offensive line as a whole entire unit, they got their work cut out of them because the guys from the New York Giants, there are no slouches over there.
Wow. They got to find a way to not only pass block, take protection for Dak Prescott, but they've also got to find a way to run the football too. And this offensive line has not helped out these running backs in terms of running the football. It's been a full season, 17 games since the Cowboys last had a 100-yard rusher. It was Tony Pollard, who now plays in Nashville. Doesn't even play on this team anymore. Isaiah, when it comes to these running backs, how much pressure is on them? Because this offensive line's got to do their job up front if they're going to have any success as well.
I hate to say this, Kyle, but there's not currently a running back on this roster or in this depth that can single-handedly make a play. They need the offensive line to create these holes. So this running back room will go as this offensive line goes. We don't have a big Derrick Henry. We don't have a super shifty back. Outside of Deuce Vaughn, really, but you have to utilize him in a way in which he can win those one-on-one matchups. He's not being left just a safety. These linebackers are being there, meeting these guys at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. We don't have that dynamic back that can just put it on his shoulders no matter how the offensive line is blocking. But give one of these guys an opportunity to at least show what they have out there. I'm tired of this running back by committee. Let's go one back this side, one back the next week, run back the next opportunity you have out there. Give somebody an opportunity to get a rhythm out there, all right? I played on the defensive side of the football where we were rotating. I hated rotating in the most because it didn't give you a chance to get a rhythm in the game. You got to give guys an opportunity to get a rhythm in the game, and I believe Rico Dowdle is that guy that you got to give a rhythm to.
What about Dalvin Cook? We haven't seen him again. He was not elevated this week. Is it time to see Dalvin Cook? Jerry Jones has talked about it throughout the week. He doesn't feel like it's time yet. Mike McCarthy doesn't feel like it's time yet. Has there been anything to prove that at least kicking the tires on a veteran like that is a bad idea?
No. We've talked to media people who've been in practice. We've talked to some coaches who've been in practice. He's not even practicing. He may get one rep here, one rep there. That's no faith in a guy that you haven't seen do things in a tremendous way. It's only two guys that can change the faith of this offensive line. One is Saquon Barkley, he's in Philadelphia. And the other one played for Detroit named Barry Sanders, and he don't play no more. Right about now, this is a 100% on our offensive line. It's 100%.
Yeah, before you go out there and you give a guy like Cook an opportunity, like I just stated before, you got to give one of these guys an opportunity to get the rhythm out there. Yeah. Once they show you that they're not able to produce like that, then you want to bring in a guy like Cook and see what he got. To me, he's one of your last resort players out there, and you got to give these other guys an opportunity to at least show what they have.
You have anything to add?
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything to add. These guys hit it on the money. I mean, there's nothing else to add.
You look a little hungry. Maybe that's it. I mean, New York is a great food city. I mean, there's a lot going on whenever it comes to the pizza, the atmosphere, the culture. What did you have before the show?
Before this show?
Yeah, before the show.
I had a little scrambled eggs. I'm a breakfast guy. I can eat breakfast throughout the entire day. I'm telling you.
What about you?
What turkey sandwich?
Ooh.
Turkey?
Sandwich?
Turkey sandwich. Yeah, like barbecue, right? Like it was a little barbecue.
From the 6th.
I like it. Nate, we know what you had.
Right.
How about a little explain yourself today on Cowboys Pregame Live? Explain yourself on what is this snackage?
The lips.
What do you got going on here, Nate?
I remember, man, some grocery store came up to me wanting to do a big shot, and they was paying me money, and it was what I love to do. That was one of my off-season shots. I probably was wearing probably about I was probably wearing about 403 right there. 403.
Isaiah was giving me flack earlier in the show about having some athletic shorts on. Those are not even close.
But look at me now. Look at me now. Yes.
Can you repost it to the camera here? Can we hit that one again real fast?
There it is. Chef's kiss.
I love it.
A little explain yourself. We've had Isaiah with the crop top. We've got now Nate with the commercial.
You'll pay for this, Caden.
We are got me on tape. Man, everybody can get it.
Even Nicole, she's not safe. Nick Eaton's
not at all.
Barry Church hasn't been there. No, there's a lot going on.
Ain't got me on tape.
I got you there, buddy.
That's not the only thing we've got here for you. We've got about 20 minutes left here in the show. Coming up, we've got Stephen Jones, Cowboys COO, one-on-one with Nick Eatman from the sidelines at MetLife Stadium. We'll also talk about CeeDee Lamb. He's got 100 yards receiving through the first 3 games. Can he get back to really the total of having 100 yards in the game with a little bit of call your shot? And then last week, the leading receiver for the Cowboys was Jake Ferguson. He comes in his first game off of an injury, had 95 receiving yards. What kind of impact will he have as an encore in his second game back from injury? Let's hear from Jake as he talked about the challenge at hand going up against the Giants tonight.
There's obviously a need to win, an urge to win. We got to win, but like you said, it is 3. There's opportunities out there. Don't dwell on the past. We need to buckle down this week. It's a short week. Get our work in, get our prep in, make sure we're clean on everything so we can go out there and win on Thursday.
It's such a short week. And Jordan was talking about we got to focus on the details. Is it good to have a short week because that just keeps you narrowly focused on it?
I think there's pros and cons. Cons being guys not getting their body back, pros being maybe that a little bit. But there's no doubt in my mind that we'll be ready, we'll prepare. We'll prepare the right way, and that's just what we need to do. And I think they're on a short week too, so there's no excuses.
Jake, it looked like a few guys were a little more demonstrative on the sidelines, as things are going bad. Where do you stand on that? Do you like seeing teammates show that passion, or would you rather more even keel?
Yeah, I mean it's exactly what you said. It's passion. you know, everybody. There's no doubt in my mind that everybody on this team loves this game, and they love playing football, and you know, emotions run high, and sometimes, you know, emotions run high in games when some things don't go our way, and I don't look at it as a super negative light, because I know some of those guys, they're going to put in the work, and they're going to, you know, they're going to work for it.
Jake Ferguson had a phenomenal game back from injury. What did you see, Isaiah, whenever you looked at the tight end prospect? He might be your number 2 wide receiver in production on this team. How important was it to have him back in the fold?
It was huge, I mean, especially against a Baltimore team that had the first 2 games of the year prior to playing the Dallas Cowboys last week has shown that tight ends can win. Right?
Yeah.
Brock Bowers had whooped their tail the week before, so you had that inspiration going into that game. But he's instrumental to these guys. Facing a defense of the New York Giants, he's going to have plenty of opportunities to win underneath. Okay, when I say underneath, I mean that 5 to 10 yard range. He's going to have plenty of opportunities to have what we call hot routes when they decide to blitz, him being able to find the little holes and being an outlet for Dak Prescott today. So hopefully these two are on the same page. If they do have that continuity, then he should have another big day today.
Yeah, I'm looking for Ferg to go out there and win those one-on-one matchups that we know he can do. I mean, he's a very quarterback-friendly, kind of that security blanket for Dak Prescott. And last week against the Baltimore Ravens, he showed coming back from his injury that he still has a little bit of juice out there. Now, a lot of those yards we saw was in garbage time, so I'd like to see him get started early and started fast in this system, so hopefully they get the ball to him early and often against the Giants. But to me, I'd like to see Mr. Ferguson get at least, you know, maybe 7, 10 receptions out there, 90 yards. I think he's capable of doing just that.
First of all, you got to understand that he can get in the way of defensive linemen. He will try to block. He will try to hustle. He's missed the enthusiasm, and he played with a physicality that we're missing on that offense. So we need Fergie to start fast and finish strong.
And we talked about how he could be your number 2 option on this offense. And I think a big part of that has been the slow start for Brandon Cooks. He had a slow start last year as well. It took really until the bye week for Brandon Cooks to finally figure out his role in this offense. I mean, he had the touchdown in week 1. Since then, 4 receptions for 35 yards over 2 weeks, guys. I mean, what do you need to see out of BC whenever it comes to Brandon Cooks this week?
Stop just lining them up. I understand that CeeDee Lamb is your feature receiver, but you have a very capable Brandon Cooks who can go out there and make plays for you. But stop asking him to simply just line up in the same exact spot every single down. I don't think we've seen the man in the slot hardly at all, and he's a really good slot receiver. So while you're still trying to force feed CeeDee Lamb, while you're trying to get Jake Ferguson the ball, utilize Brandon Cooks because he has been severely underutilized during his tenure here in the Dallas Cowboys, because prior to coming to the Dallas Cowboys, all he did was get 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and he hasn't sniffed that.
Yeah, he's been Mr. 1,000 yards when you talk about all the different quarterbacks he's able to get that with. But I'm not so sure what's going on with Cooks, because when they do end up trying to get him the football, it seems like there's no separation out there. Now, I don't know if that has to do with, you know, the routes he's running out there, or whether or not, you know, he's just not into it as far as getting that rhythm going, because he's seeing the ball in the first quarter, but not seeing it again until the second half. So to me, I need to see a little bit more separation from Cooks out there, and maybe that'll happen with a little bit more volume getting tossed his way.
Okay, no,
I was going to add to that, BC. No, I don't want to debate it. I just want to add to it. Being, you know, playing receiver in the league, right? Sometimes, you know, you're in a system that doesn't allow for you to be that creative in your routes, right? So you're being asked to run the same 2 or 3 routes throughout the whole game, and defenses know what you're doing.
We pick up
right?
on that.
You guys pick up on that, right? So you can sit on it, you can squat on it, you recognize concepts. So that might be a part of it too. They're not giving him the ability to move around and be creative with his route running.
I got you.
We were so excited when we signed this guy a few years ago. We need to take advantage of it and just see and give him, just like you say, move him around, let him go in motion, and and let him catch the ball quickly and see what he can do, because just running straight down the field, that's easy to figure out.
Yeah, and it's not really being effective at that point. You could say the same thing about some of the other route concepts from Jalen Tolbert as well. They finally figured out how to get him and Kevontae Turpin the ball, some of these under-the-radar wideouts and weapons for this Cowboys offense. In the fourth quarter last week, Tolbert had 3 targets. He caught all 3 balls, and he had 42 yards and a touchdown in that fourth quarter alone against the Ravens. So, Isaiah, when I look at you and talk about Jalen Tolbert, I know it's been a long time coming, but is it starting to finally click here for Jalen Tolbert?
The jury's out.
Okay.
The jury's out. And that's
fair.
There's no disrespect there. You just heard Mr. Defense right here, my Mr. Barry Church himself, talk about garbage time. And garbage time is a real thing. And I know a lot of Cowboys fans like to think that you were back into that ball game last week. And the reality is Baltimore was just like, here, take it. All right. I wasn't going to say the other name that was affiliated with that. But but the thing is, Jalen Tolbert still has to show that he's capable of doing that in those first 3 quarters when the game is close and you're not getting beat up.
Yeah, I kind of like what I've seen so far from Tolbert. I mean, going into the season, this was supposed to be your 3rd or 4th wide receiver, your 3rd or 4th option out there when you talk about the passing attack. And this guy has made plays when he's given the opportunity. We saw him in that Saints game make that big play down the sidelines. In the 4th quarter against the Baltimore Ravens, like you just said, Kyle, he was able to go out there and take advantage of the opportunities given to him. So to me, I like what I've seen so far. With more opportunities, he'll get more targets out there, and hopefully his play will elevate as well.
He's starting to be consistent, and that's what you want from your 3rd receiver who's pushing to be your 2nd receiver. You want consistency. You want Dak to trust him, and now you can start looking at maybe as a 2nd receiver a better option. So here we go. Let's keep him being Mr. Consistent.
And to that point, just as we were just talking about Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks is a 1,000-yard receiver. I'm gonna call it like
bona
that.
fide.
If you put him in position, he's a 1,000-yard receiver.
He's shown that he's talented enough to do so.
And what these two just mentioned is Jalen Tolbert's ability, right? He is very capable of going out there and being a major contributor for this offense if he's put in the right position, if he's given the right route concepts. No different than Kevontae Turpin. Kevontae Turpin is a little bit different in the sense of he just has to build confidence. He can be huge for this offense if he builds confidence. So what you saw last week was him sprinkling in Kevontae Turpin and building his confidence. He was able to make some catches that historically he's dropped. He was able to make a touchdown catch that historically wasn't there for him. So if you put these other young 3, 4, deep receivers in position to be successful, they will show you that they're capable of contributing, and that way you can alleviate the pressure on CeeDee and allow your other guys to uplift the entire offense.
Yeah, it's all working together, and you can't fumble the ball either.
No, don't fumble.
Can't fumble the ball.
We did that in the red zone last week.
You can't do that. Receivers got to hold on to it. Got to have the assist whenever it comes to that. But you got to have all of it working together, and that's the big thing for this offense right now. Is it hasn't been that. Now, if you're new to Cowboys Pregame Live, this is our segment where we put out some bold predictions for the week. This is called Call Your Shot. And it's based on a point system. Every week we give a point system and we basically wager.
We're taking our points.
Taking the points away. What we wager based off of our bold predictions. Here's what the standings look like right now, and we'll tell you how many points we're wagering, but you have a bank of points. How about me and Nate up there at the top? We got 4 points. I got a 2-pointer last week. Thank you very much. Dak Prescott throwing for 300 yards. You got Barry Church with 2. And then Isaiah, he was down at 0 last week, but he got his right because he said
Look at my
the
bar
Ravens.
grab. Look at my grab.
Yeah, it's going back up in the right direction.
I need that loan back too. All right?
Trending the right direction. Let me continue explaining. If you get it wrong, you lose those 2 points or however many points you wager. If you get it right, you get that many points back. So that's how Call Your Shot works. We'll explain that as we go along throughout the season. So I'm going to let Isaiah go first because you're in last.
So I'm on my way up, baby.
You got to get it right. You've still got 1 point left. What you got?
I am coming back with Dak Prescott for 2 games in a row, hits over 300 yards passing. Today will be another day where he hits over 300 yards. He's going to ball out against this defense, baby.
Did you just take the one that I had last week and just
take that?
Did you recycle my Call Your Shot?
Yeah, I didn't know that was a part of the rule.
I didn't do that.
Listen, I'm from the Northwest. We recycle, baby.
You leave it with something. You're going to leave it with something.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, all right,
I don't know about that one. But for me, defensively, I feel like they're going to get at least one takeover or turnover. You got to get it from Daniel Jones. I mean, this is a guy that historically has turned over the ball. I know he's been playing well these past couple games, but he hasn't played against Micah Parsons so far this year. Strip sack, interception, whatever the case may be, they're going to get at least one turnover.
How many points?
1 point on that one.
1 point on the line. 1 point on the line. Nate,
I'm a safe guy, and I believe that you have to be safe the first 4 or 5 games. I will get drastic starting after next week, but I got to get CeeDee back going. So he needs 100 yards, and I'm giving up 1 point.
Okay, so another 1-pointer from Nate. You guys are lame. I'm going to go 2 points right here. 2 points on the line.
For the lead.
And here's the really bold part, especially how this defense is played. They're going to hold the Giants underneath 100 yards rushing today. Under 100 yards rushing. And Isaiah can't believe it, but that's the case. 100 yards rushing, 2 points on the line. 2 points on the line. Let's go out to MetLife Stadium, talk to Nick Eatman, who's now catching up with Cowboys COO Stephen Jones.
Thanks so much, Kyle. And I'm standing here with Stephen Jones, Cowboys Chief Operating Officer. And boy, it's a short week, but it's probably a good week to get back on the field after 2 home losses, get on the road, play these Giants team. Obviously, the Giants beat Cleveland as well. So what is your thoughts on this game right here and just Cowboys coming off a short week?
Well, that's it. It's a short week, but if there's ever a good time to have a short week, it's now. I don't know. We've come off many on the road to boot, but I know Mike and Mike got our team ready to go in terms of having the guys in the right place and the right frame of mind. And as you said, I know they're ready to get out here on the field and make some plays. It was great to see the team finish strong after another tough beginning last week, and hopefully that carries over. And we can hopefully get rolling, moving the ball, and then. But boy, they got a really damn good defense, and they're getting better on offense as they go. So we got our work cut out for us.
What is so important for this team about getting off to a fast start? It seems like it just lets your team, offense and defense, play the way they want to play.
No question. I mean, obviously we were fortunate last year where we got off to a lot of fast starts, and I think one of our one of the things we do best is rush the passer. You saw that against Cleveland, and whenever you can get off to a fast start, then a lot of that comes into play more. And certainly we'd love to get ourselves in that situation. Get ourselves in more 3rd and 5 or mores rather than the 3rd and less than 5s, and that plays into our hands on defense. But still got a lot of confidence. I mean, this is a new scheme, new language, new everything for this defense, and so there's going to be some growing pains. But overall, we feel like we've got the players that can execute, and ultimately Zim will have this group playing good defense.
Let's flip to the offense and the running game. Obviously, you have the running back by committee, different guys. I don't know if I've heard you answer this. I'm sure you've been asked why Dalvin Cook hasn't been ready yet, or at least not elevated. Was it because of a short week, or still just looking at the other guys?
I think just looking at the other guys. I mean, it's real hard to judge your running game on the 2 games we just played. I mean, we're down by multiple scores most of the game. And it's hard to get in a rhythm when you're feeling the pressure to put points and get back, put points, and so it's a tough evaluation. At the same time, coming off a short week, it is difficult to work guys in there unless you just have to. And we like our 3 backs, and the offensive line group, even albeit young, with the 2 rookies playing, they're blocking it up good. And I think it's just a matter of time before we see the running game improve.
You've probably been around this. You've heard this before when you lose some games. Players are frustrated. They say some things. We got to focus in details, things like that. Some of your guys have said that. Are you confident with the way they practice this week on a short week and just kind of where they are with the mindset?
Absolutely. I mean, I think anytime you've got fierce competitors on your team, which we do, you're going to have some of that seep out, and everybody's got the team speak and the players speak. But at the end of the day, everybody just feels like we should be playing better, and that goes for all 3 phases. We just got to play better as a team, and I feel like we need to start that tonight and feel like it can happen tonight.
And then the last one about your kicker's just been unbelievable. Brandon Aubrey, just watching him. What kind of weapon has he become? And just is there ever a doubt when he's out there like, oh, he's making this? I mean, extra points, field goals, just always seems like he's automatic.
Well, you don't ever take anything for granted, but he is a weapon. And anytime you're starting to think, well, if we can get to that 50-yard line, he's going to have a chance, then that's a weapon. And I think the other team thinks about it as well. And like I said, he's kicking as well as anybody, maybe period, has ever kicked in this league. And whether it's his accuracy or his distance, he's getting it all done. And, of course, that group, that execution group, they do a great job between the snapper and the holder and the kicker. It's a great operation right now.
Well, I know you definitely want to see more touchdowns as well, but still, if there's field goals,
make those extra points.
Extra points. All right, sounds good. All right, that's Stephen Jones, Cowboys Chief Operating Officer. Kyle, we'll throw it back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Dick. We've got the Arctic Cowboy helmet ready to rock. Barry, you want to suit up, right?
I could. Let me go.
You can't do it.
They don't want church.
Hey, that DB room's a little bit thin. You might check your phone.
It's going to cost you.
All right? A little, maybe cost you a lot. That's true. But it is going to cost you.
Oh, without a
Barry
question.
Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton. Time now for our keys to the game. Isaiah, how do the Cowboys get back on the right track?
Got to run the ball, man. They got to run the ball. They have to be able to control the possession, because I think that in this particular setting, if you get behind these guys, the crowd's going to take over, and they have a lot of momentum going on right now.
Yeah, you got to get CeeDee Lamb going early and often. All right, the DB's over for the Giants. They're down a couple guys out there. Exploit that secondary. Get Dak Prescott. Would you say over 300 yards? Maybe 299 because this guy, I don't want him getting points. But get CeeDee Lamb going early and often. All right.
Offensive line have to control the game because we have to make sure our defense don't get ran on, get ran over, not be who they need to be. Our offensive line has to take over the game, run and pass, to keep our defense off the field.
It's finally divisional matchup time. It just has a little extra juice when you play in the NFC East. This one's going to be fun. Amazon Prime, we've got Prime Video on the call today. Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit. Be sure to join us after the game for Cowboys Game Night and the first word presented by Dr. Pepper. For Barry Church, Isaiah Stanback, Nate Newton, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long for Cowboys Pregame Live. Cowboys Giants coming up next.